Wozan asa Radio Mango ani wozan asa Radio Mango'co special interview. Wendell Rodricks is simply my favorite Goan, not only because he is India's foremost fashion designer, but because he is a proud Goan who wears his Goan ancestry on his fashionable sleeve with pride. He has single-handedly put Goa on the fashion map of the world. A designer with an international presence, Wendell has presented his unique garments inspired by Goa and India at major fashion events. He's the first Indian designer to be invited to show at the world's largest garment fair in Germany, the Dubai Fashion Week, Malaysia Fashion Week, the prestigious Paris Pret-a-Porter Salon, and the world's biggest organic fair in Nuremberg. He was invited to showcase 2 fashion shows in New York to celebrate the 60th year of India's independence. Rodricks has also shown at Festival of India in Beijing and Shanghai in China and in Sri Lanka. Wendell was instrumental in planning the first ever Lakme India Fashion Week in 2000. In 2001, he designed the Visionaire Collection, a worldwide pioneering collection to help the visually challenged read Braille on clothes. Since then, Wendell has designed clothing for differently abled and physically challenged persons, from hearing challenged to amputees. The first ever designer police uniform in India was designed gratis by Wendell for the Goa State Police. Over the years, he has designed uniforms for major international hotel chains, Goa Tourism Development Corporation, and the Enforcement Directorate. Wendell has received praise for reviving the Goa Kundi sari, a dying craft. Since 2008, the Eco Goa Room at Wendell Rodricks Design Space promotes garments using only natural dyes, which are procured from tribals in the Western Ghats. His book, Moda Goa, History and Style, got rave reviews for its portrayal of long-forgotten aspects of Goa's cultural history in a Goa costume format. His memoir, The Green Room, gives an insider's view of the fashion industry. Wendell has also written for leading fashion magazines. He is very involved in philanthropic causes. In 1999, he donated an entire fashion collection and proceeds to the Kasturba Gandhi Trust to promote Khadi in Goa. That year, Wendell curated the first ever promotion of Goan contemporary artists as a group in Mumbai, Fado, which opened international doors to many Goan artists. He has served on the managing committee of the Red Cross Society and presently the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage and the Museum of Christian Art in Old Goa. He's also the chairman of Green Goa Works. And Wendell also served on the board of the Fashion Design Council of India and is on the board of Whistling Woods International, Nita Lula School of Fashion. He's also on the steering committee of the Goa Institute of Management. In 2014, Wendell was awarded the Padma Shri for Art and Fashion Design. He's also the recipient of the Rainbow Warrior Award by Kashish Film Festival and Knight in the Order of Arts and Letters by the Ministry of Culture and Communication of France. He has settled in his ancestral village Kolval, Goa since 1993. Welcome to Radio Mango, Wendell. It is my absolute pleasure to have you here. You missed the San Juan in Goa, but it's our good fortune to have you here. Welcome to Radio Mango.
Thank you very much, and I want to say to all the Goenkas, a very good San Juan, and may all your hearts be filled with goodness.
Right, and booze. Now, you studied hotel management and worked in the hospitality industry for 6 years before studying fashion designing. Now, what motivated this leap from the kitchen to the catwalk, Wendell?
I don't know about kitchen to the catwalk. I saw it as a very easy transition of designing dressing salads to dressing women. And I always wanted to do something with design. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
Because from a young age, people would say, ask me things. What color should we paint this wall? What kind of color will suit me? And I would always advise them, and they would listen to this 6 or 8-year-old child.
Really, from that early?
From that early.
Yeah.
And I really knew I had to get there eventually, but I came from a very humble middle class home in Bombay, My father definitely did not have the finance to educate his 4 sons abroad, leave alone one.
Right.
So I went about it the long way. I took the next glamorous profession open at that time with 5-star hotels. I have a degree in hotel management. I worked 2 years in Bombay, 4 years in the Middle East, and saved up enough of money to educate myself in fashion in Los Angeles and then later on in Paris.
In Paris. Amazing. So it was a strategic decision, kind of.
Very strategic.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
You have to plan to save every month. I remember like a good Goan, we have the largest number of banks in Goa because of the strait. We tend to save our money every month and keep it aside for the rainy day, which is like the monsoon's on at the moment.
Excellent. Now what interests me is that in 2010 you revived the weaving of the traditional Goan Kundi sari. Tell us a little more about this project.
I started doing the research of Goan clothes, actually one particular garment, the Panbaju, because my dear friend Mario Miranda told me, why don't you do this garments research, because it's going to be featured in the book with Mario Cabral, who was the editor of the book.
Yes.
Unfortunately, the book never happened, but what happened was that I really researched this Panbaju or Bastorov as they call it. I enjoyed the process, and at that time I was also teaching history of world costume at SNDT University.
Right.
So I agreed with what Mario said. He said you have the DNA and the pedigree to do the entire research of Goan costume.
Right.
So I said, well, I don't know much about that, and he said eventually you should make a museum, and we will open a museum in 2018. But I said I must go and study museology and how to look after garments and how to display them.
Yeah.
I did 2 internships, one in New York at the museum at FIT, and one of older clothing at the Musée National de Trage in Lichbourg. And I learned how to do that, and then for 10 years I researched the Goan costume and eventually wrote Moda Goa in 1 year after that. In that process, I realized that we did not have a sari left that was made in the state.
Right.
Unlike Gujarat that had their wonderful patolas.
Almost every state.
Every state. And then we had nothing.
Yes.
And that shamed me, bitterly shamed me. And I said, you know what? We have one sari. It belongs to a backward tribe, which... I mean, backward in the sense,
Goan, actually.
Indigenously Goan, but looked down by the caste system, pushed down, so they didn't even want to wear their own sari. And in the Portuguese time, the sari was frowned on. For all those reasons, it was lost to antiquity.
Right.
So I decided that we would revive it.
Right.
We would not use the same colors. We would not use the double dobby that ran through its hem or pallu and border. We would not use the dyes that they were using. We were going to use these eco-friendly dyes from an NGO that we worked with for 7 years to create these dyes. And then I revived the Kunbi sari in my Wendell Rodricks version. It's not the red, black and white.
Because it was always there, it just had to be rediscovered. Yeah. Now you've authored 2 books. One is a memoir and one is about memories of Goan fashion, which is Moda Goa, The Green Room and Moda Goa. Can you walk us through these books? Very quickly.
Well, Moda Goa I already spoke about because it was a book on Goan costume, and I spent 10 years researching, 1 year writing the book. The Green Room actually happened because I was part of the Goa writers, and somebody threw a challenge and said, if we write 2,000 words every day at the end of 30 days, we will have 60,000, and then after a month, after 2 months you'll have so much. If you write for 4 months, you'll have 240,000 words.
And you followed that format?
I was the only one that actually studiously, disciplinedly sat every morning and wrote, and I finished the book.
Wow.
And and the book got published. I hardly...
So 2,000 words every day?
2,000 words every day, yeah. And this was, apart from my regular work, I had to wake up at 4 in the morning and actually run through this book and type out in the dark in Kolwal on plastic on my iPad. And I was surprised when I finished the book was too long, so they had to cut it down and make it shorter.
Listening to you, everybody thinks that arty world is like, hera fairy, just airy. But imagine the amount of discipline you have. And it's discipline and focus from what I can see.
Well, I went through 3 areas of discipline in my life. The first was catering college was so disciplined. I mean, you You can't have pink hair and serve, be the manager in a 5-star hotel.
Right.
Secondly was the Royal Oman Police. I worked with the Police Officers Club, so I know what discipline was. If you didn't deliver on time, you got charge sheeted.
Right.
And then fashion itself. People think that fashion is very undisciplined. I'm sorry, it's very disciplined. We have to show twice a year. We have to appear on time for our fittings. We have to finish our fittings on time. We have to get the show running off on time, finish it off in 15 minutes and show 40 garments. I've been living with discipline, and I'm proud of the fact that my grandfather served with the army in India, and I have the discipline as part of my DNA.
I think your next project should be School of Discipline.
We are continuing our conversation with Wendell Rodricks. You turned to philanthropic causes in 1999 and now serve on the board of various charities, write for different magazines, work for a cleaner, greener Goa and more. How do you have the time? And where are we ever going to see a cleaner, greener Goa?
Well, I must tell you a little story. When I turned 40, I was thinking about it since 1999, but I actually started in 2000. The great Simone Tata, I worked with the Tatas on many projects, and she said, Wendell, now you've turned 40, and why don't you now do what I do? And I said, which is? And she said, every Saturday morning you give to charity till your lunch hour, and then you can go out and have friends with you can have fun with your friends and have lunches and society lunches, etc. And I took it very seriously. I looked at her in the eye and I said, thank you, Simone, I'm going to do exactly that. So since then I've been doing it. I make a conscious effort every Saturday to give back something to society.
Okay.
Like for me, my Saturday this week in Canada is going to Radio Mango. All Goans, when you talk about Goa, I'm so proud to be Goan because of the fact that they always, this is one community in India, even other people from other states in India have noticed it. They say, y'all Goans are so much in love with your land, and it's true, we really are in love with our land. Even you can, as they say, you can take the Goan out of Goa, but you can't take Goa out of the Goan. I think what is important is that we have all our own perceptions about Goa. When I'm saying we, I'm talking about the world at large. You meet people in England and say, oh, I was there in the 60s and it was like that, and it was so beautiful and there was no lights. You speak to Goans who've left and migrated to Canada or Australia, and they say, we have this Goa and it's changed so much. But the world has changed everywhere. You go to New York, you go to London, you go to Tahiti, you go to Papua New Guinea, which I was last year. And they've all changed, and of course they changed for the better in some ways. I mean, I came to a Goa which I didn't have electricity and I didn't have a cell phone till 10 years after I arrived.
Yeah.
So I think we have to take both with time. But I think at the back of our minds, we should, as Goans, not be selfish. I do not want us to be selfish for ourselves. We must think about the wider sense of Goa. And what are we leaving for our children?
Yeah.
आमच्या भुरग्यांक कितें दवरता? We have to find out what are we going to give them.
Legacy.
Are we going to give them the water that we inherited? Are we going to give them the beach that we inherited? Are we going to give them a forest that we inherited? I think, when I think about it very seriously, I always say, God gave us all this.
Yeah.
Whatever we have, God gave us.
But at least
but what have Goans do to better what God has given?
Exactly.
If God has given us a lake or a Mandovi and whatever, why aren't we doing water harvesting and getting more water? Why aren't we growing more trees? After the Portuguese came, we don't have more plants and cashew trees, whatever, which has come into Goa. So we need to improve what Goa is. And really make it green.
Preserve it, actually.
And because we are leaving it, we are not doing it for ourselves. People like us, as chairman of Green Goa Works, I say, why am I doing this? I could be partying on page 3 and traveling, which I love. But I think I'm doing it because it's for the future generations to see some part of the Goa that we saw.
Another question is, our layman's view of fashion industry is one of cutthroat competition, tantrums, godfathers, etc. How did you survive, and what's your advice to upcoming fashion designers?
I
You
think
have
for
to go
that,
through all that?
yeah, of course you have to get through all that. But this is not unusual in the world. One has to be very practical. Listen, I'm 56 years old. I've seen a lot in this world, in many professions, not just one profession. And I think that this happens whether you're in media, whether you're in a hospital, whether you're in fashion. There is politics and there is one-man upmanship. There's lots of things that happens. You have to keep above it all and you have to work all above it. I want to just tell every Goenkar that when I was in Paris, I learned a very, very important lesson. My teacher told me, she said, "Iskolacha sod, gawacha sod, ani panjimak sod, bomaik sod, ani Indiak sod. Tuzo kam, whatever work you're doing, it has to be the best in the world. Otherwise, it is not going to be successful." I, as Wendell Rodricks, have to stand at the side of Karl Lagerfeld and Michael Kors and Calvin Klein and everyone and say, "Listen, boss, what you all do is great. But what I do comes from my heart, my mind. It's not copied from any book." And that is the secret which all Goans should aspire to. It's not that you will be the best in your school.
To be world class.
You have to be a world citizen because this is a big world, and the more you aim internationally, the world is going to come to you. It came to me via the internet, and we're a small village now.
Yes.
So I think that we need to look at ourselves, Goans, not as these small parochial, small-minded thinking Goans. We need to say, "I'm come to Canada, I'm going to take over, not only Canada, I'm going to take over the world." That's why I've reached where I've reached with this mantra at the back of my head.
Fantastic. Amazing. Now what's next for Wendell Rodricks?
What's next? There's always something happening, and this is the beauty of life. We are at the moment transferring. I have a very old house. Some parts of it are about 450 years old, but most part of it is about 200 years old. And somebody came and gave me a fantastic offer, but the offer was so obscene that I said, I got this house from a lady whose children, two of them are settled here in Canada, and she said, "Don't ever break this house." But I knew that the money that I was offered would entail that the house would be broken and made into a boutique hotel or a bed and breakfast or something. And I said, the biggest legacy I could leave as Wendell Rodricks was to make the book Moda Goa into a museum. Wow. So we are moving it out of the house at the moment. We will be out of it by October, and we will.
So you're building a completely new
I got another house on rent, 5 minutes walk away. So I will be converting that into a museum, into the Moda Goa Museum. We are going to make it. I want it to be modern, as I said. I want it to be internationally among the best in the world. So we are going to get all the vitrines from overseas. I'm going to make sure that we have a nice library. I want space for scholars to come and research.
And who's financing this?
I do not want to take financing from the government. I believe in working for myself and for doing it myself, because when you get into government, then you also get into favors, and then you have to repay favors. Take my peon, take my chaiwala, take the sweeping bar.
Doesn't this come under the tourism umbrella?
Let them come and see what we did without their help. I'm already going to apply to the International Museum Association to make sure that we are involved with all the international museums of the world, so we can exchange objects. We have very old pieces. I have very old gold. We have lots of stuff in the museum. And I would, the reason why I came on Radio Mango was to ask all Goans all over the world, if you have any old garments, we don't care what condition they are in, please donate it to our museum. We will look after it. We will take care of your legacy. We will protect the name of your families, and it will stay for posterity. If you have gold and you're not so generous, we'll even agree to buy some of it.
Oh, wow.
Wow, that is fantastic.
Yeah. Wendell, every guest that comes into our studio is given 15 seconds. We call it 15 seconds of fame, but you don't need it, obviously. You've got 15 times 100. But anything that you want to say to anybody, now's your chance.
I just want to say that we should learn our history more as Goans. Goa becomes the first place in the world. We use the word Indo-Western very freely and loosely today, but actually Goa is the birthplace of the first Indo-Western garments, because the Portuguese came to Goa. They were not happy with the climate, with their Western garments. We were not happy with some of our garments, so the first Indo-Western garments are actually born in Goa.
And what is that?
We should be proud of that. Any fusion. People don't know their history. They don't even know that the first Indians to sail the seas westwards and go to Europe were actually Goa's goldsmiths. The Daivaidana Brahmins were taken there because of their expertise in setting stones to the court of Europe and then fanned out to Spain and to France. So I think, we have to learn our history and know where we came from,
And
to
be
go
proud.
forward and be proud international citizens.
So I'm suggesting you all tazo book wazat moda Goa tantun sogle tumka zaite koltele tazo book wazat Wendell Rodricks aso ani tuka choran chod deu gore koru
Thank you,
moja
thank you.
ishta kidak tuz I know tuzo दी साइज एकदम बिजी आसा तरी तुवें टाइम काढून तू हांगा बसलाय आमचे बरोबर तुका चोड आनी चोड देव बरें करूं आनी तुजे म्युजियम उगडटा तेन्ना रेडिओ मँगोक आमंत्रण धाड आपोवणें धाड आमी येता थंय कवर करपाक
देव बरें करूं
थँक
तुमकां
यू
सगळ्यांक.
व्हेरी मच